Okay, so in today's video, we're going to take a very quick look at converting between percentages and fractions. So for this first question, we want to write 23% as a fraction in its simplest form. So to get from a percentage to a fraction, we can just write it as a fraction over 100 because that's what a percent means. It's how many parts have we got per 100. So 23% would be equivalent to 23 out of 100, so over 100. So we've got it written as a fraction. We now need to make sure it's in its simplest form. So what's the highest common factor of both of these numbers? Well, taking 23, 23 is actually a prime number. The only factors are 1 and 23. Well, 23 isn't a factor of 100, so the highest common factor of both these numbers is actually 1. So if I divide both these numbers by 1, it's going to give me the same result. So 23% as a fraction in its simplest form is 23 hundredths. So for this next question, we now want to go from a fraction to a percentage. So we want to write 3/5 as a percentage. Well, we may know what some of our unit fractions are as a percentage. So we may know that 1/5 is equivalent to 20%. So that means for 3/5, all we need to do is multiply it by 3, which gives me 60%. But we're not always going to have fractions that are this straightforward. So let's look at a method similar to the one we've just used. So we've got the fraction 3/5, and we want it as a percentage. Well, we know that percentage means per 100, so can we find an equivalent fraction to 3/5 that is over 100? So what have we done to get from 5 to 100? Well, on the bottom, we have simply multiplied by 20. So to keep this fraction equivalent, I'm going to do exactly the same to the numerator. I'm also going to multiply that by 20. So I'd have 3 times 20, which is 60. So now we've got an equivalent fraction, which is 60 over 100. And because it's over 100, that means that the numerator is our percentage. So 3/5, again, we can see is equivalent to 60%. So hopefully those couple of examples made sense. We're now going to take a look at some more practice questions. So feel free to pause the video here and have a go at these, and we'll go through the solutions in just a few moments. So for this first question, we want to write 30% as a fraction, given it in its simplest form. So we've actually got a multiple of 10% now, and just like before, we might know what some of our conversions between percentages and fractions are. So we may know that 10% is the same as 1/10, and then because I need 30%, I just simply need to multiply by 3. So that's going to be equivalent to 3/10. But again, using the method we used before, we've got 30%, and we know percent means out of 100, so this would be equivalent to 30 over 100. So it then says to give our fraction in its simplest form, so I'm going to divide by the highest common factor of 30 and 100, which is 10. So I'm going to divide top and bottom by 10. So if I do 30 divided by 10, that gives me 3, and then 100 divided by 10 is going to give me 10. And that'd be our answer to that one. Okay, for this next question, we want to write 15% as a fraction, again in its simplest form. So 15% as a fraction we can write as 15 over 100. So that's 15% as a fraction. We now want it in its simplest form. So I want to divide the numerator and denominator by the highest common factor. Well, the highest common factor of 15 and 100 is actually 5. So I'm going to divide the top and bottom both by 5. So if we do 15 divided by 5, that's going to give us 3. And then we do 100 divided by 5, that's going to give us 20. So 15% as a fraction in its simplest form is 3/20. Okay, for question 5, writing 4% as a fraction in its simplest form. So to begin with, we can write 4% as 4 over 100. But now we need it in its simplest form. So we need to divide top and bottom by the highest common factor. So the highest common factor of 4 and 100 is actually 4. So we can divide top and bottom by 4. So if we do 4 divided by 4, that's going to give us 1. And if we do 100 divided by 4, that's going to give us 25. So 4% as a fraction in its simplest form is 1/25. Okay, now for question 6, we're going from a fraction to a percentage. So for this first question, we want to convert 7/10 into a percentage. So for this one again, because we're using tenths, which is a very common fraction, we may know what the conversion is to a percentage to help us find 1/10, which then we can use to find 7/10. But we're going to follow this method we were using before. We've got 7/10, and we want to convert this to a percentage. So let's find an equivalent fraction. And because we want to convert it to a percentage, we want the denominator to be 100. We want this fraction to be out of 100. So what have we done? Well, to get from 10 to 100, we must have multiplied by 10, which means we're going to do exactly the same thing on top. We're going to do 7 multiplied by 10, which gives us 70. So because we've now got a fraction over 100, we know that the numerator is actually the percentage. So 7/10 is equivalent to 70%. Moving on, we've now got 11/50 that we need to convert into a percentage. So we've got 11 over 50. And because we want it as a percentage, I'm going to find an equivalent fraction that is over 100. How do we get from 50 to 100? Well, we're just going to multiply by 2. And to keep it equivalent, I'm going to do exactly the same to the top. So I need to do 11 multiplied by 2. That's going to give me 22. So because it's over 100, 22 over 100 is equal to 22%. And for this very last question, we now want to write 7/20 as a percentage. So I'm just going to copy that 7/20 down. And again, I want it as a percentage. So the first thing I'm going to do is find an equivalent fraction, if I can, that is over 100. So how do we get from 20 to 100? Well, all we're going to do here is simply multiply by 5. So to keep things equivalent, I'm going to also do the same to the top. So if I do 7 multiplied by 5, that's just going to give me 35. So 7/20 is equivalent to 35 hundredths. But now that I've got that fraction over 100, I know that the numerator part is the percentage. So 7/20 is equal to 35%. So well done if you followed along with those questions. And that's it for this video. If you want to check out any other videos involving percentages, fractions, and decimals, then I've left some links for them down in the description, and I've also put a card in the top corner, so feel free to check them out. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please feel free to leave a like and consider subscribing. If there are any topics you'd like me to go through next, then please just let me know down in the comments, and I'll try to make some videos on those topics as soon as possible. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.